I didn't really expect to be coming back to this place, especially after the last video, but there were a few people who are having a little trouble trying to see what I was trying to show. And I know it's hard. Sometimes it's more successful than other times. This video is for Jan. Jan had a really hard time seeing what I was trying to show. And so we talked about it a little bit. And so I decided that I was going to go ahead and come back here and try it again, specifically for her. And maybe some of the other folks too who really weren't quite sure. So hopefully I'll be able to clear these pictures up a little bit. But what can I say? It's not my fault. These pictures are messed up to begin with, and then I have to try and turn chicken shit into chicken salad, and it's pretty hard to do. But I do my best. There's two parts to this picture here. There's the city in the background, and then there's also what's in the foreground in front of this hillside. And let me tell you folks, this is loaded. This is extremely loaded, and I'm only going to highlight a few items for you. You should stop the video and take a close look, maybe even get your magnifying glass out, because this place is loaded with stuff in here, all different kinds of things. Why don't you try to figure out what's going on here and leave your comments down below and tell me what you think. I think it's all about pumping water out of the ground and getting it over to the city. On the left side of this picture, in the previous shots, you can see pipes going to the other side. And in the top right of this picture, there's what I think is a pump. It has a pipe going up into another building with other pipes going over the hill. I guess that's why I think it's all about water. They need water, and this is definitely a support area for the city. And the other thing that's been driving me crazy for a long time is, what is this thing in the bottom right corner? I mean, I would appreciate any comments that you could leave to tell me what you think it is. Any of this stuff, for that matter. And for sure, pause the video. When you see the color go away, take a close look. You can see all this stuff is here. I didn't create it. I'm not that much of an artist, for sure. You know, and by the way, this thing in the lower right-hand corner, I just had to throw this in real quick because it drove me crazy so much. There's another picture with that. There's a Gigapan. Now, this is my picture. This is a picture that I've been working with. And then Gigapan came out. That's their picture right there. Isn't that lovely? That's supposed to be the same thing. Only thing is, if you ask me, they just scratched it out and did everything they could to completely hide it. I just had to throw that in there. That was kind of an extra thing. In the city, when we start looking at the background area back there, there's a couple other things I wanted to talk about too. You may have noticed a couple of black dots up in the sky here. I noticed it right off some time ago. And there's two dots up in the sky, and I think they are whatever, drones, flying saucers, UFOs. They're stationed about 1,000 feet up, 500 to 1,000 feet up over the city, and there are 4 of them in this picture. And they're all perfectly spaced. I measured it. They are absolutely perfectly spaced apart, and they're the same altitude. I'm going to talk later about what I think that's all about, and there are more of those as well. Now, in these pictures, I'm going to show quite a few of the same shot, different versions. What I'm looking at are the streets. There are streets in this photograph about the 9 o'clock position going towards the center. You can see the streets. There's only a few of them that are very, very clear, and they're very clear. You can see 2 or 3 streets, and I just put a little header at the top of those. In one of these streets, actually there's a couple, but this one in particular actually comes all the way through to the front. So if you have a sprawling city, you have to have streets, right? And these buildings are so large that I think they're like a 1 square block each building. So each building, the gap between each building is where the streets go. So you don't have multiple buildings in one block. You just have one building. You see those streets back there? I mean, this is really important because this is going to help you show that this is indeed a city. And while we can't focus in very well on what's behind this first row of buildings, you can see the first row of buildings. And as I said, it is a lousy picture. I think this is about as good as I'm going to be able to do. Maybe I'll learn something else. I don't know. Now, if you look in the background, there's a straight line where the mountain comes down and meets the so-called terrain. It is perfectly straight. And the reason for that is that it is a row of buildings in the back there. And you can see the little gaps. You can just make out the little gaps where the streets come all the way up to the edge of the mountain down there towards the bottom. And you can also see it when I invert it. Instead of being light colored little gaps, they're dark colored little gaps. They're absolutely there. And you can also see some pretty good detail on these buildings in the front row here. There's pipes coming out of them, and you know, it is a little blurry. It's this and that, but it's enough to see. I mean, you can see structures there. Now we're looking straight down a street here. This is the biggest, most obvious street. Obviously, the Curiosity rover is stationed right in front of it to be able to look down that street. You can see it go all the way back towards the mountain there, and it does kind of bend a little bit too. And keep focused on the back along where the mountain comes down and meets the terrain, or what I'm calling the structures along the back, because it's very straight all the way, and there are some areas where there's different levels, and that's coming up here shortly. But you can very clearly see the buildings in the front, and pick out a few towards the back, and then it's all this rubble stuff in the front is structures, but it's so complicated there's just no way to really bring that out. Here is this is a shot that I've used before, and you can see the structures going down to the rear, starting from about the middle. I drew a line in there. And again, look at the row in the back, the very back edge of this. You see two different levels, and that is the buildings on the right. The 2/3 of the buildings on the right are taller than the 1/3 of the buildings on the left. You can see the gap there where you go from about the 10 o'clock position to the right 1/3, and then it steps up and goes all the way over to the right again. Those buildings are taller. I don't know why. Maybe I know they like to build in in levels, so maybe there's going to be another level of buildings going on top of these. I don't know. And in these pictures here, you can see the tall buildings way in the distance there, and also in the distance along the mountainside in the back on the right. Now these buildings are closer to us because the hillside kind of bends around, so you get a little bit better view of the buildings in the back that have the straight roof line along the top, and you can see a pattern. It looks like windows, but of course they're not windows because they'd be much too large. But it is a pattern, some kind of a pattern on those buildings. You can very clearly see it. And there's a better shot there. And that's the way it goes all the way from right to left. I hope you're able to see it a little bit better this time, folks. I appreciate your comments, all of your comments. Please leave some. And please share this with your friends. I need a little help from you guys with some subscriptions and some sharing this so we can get it out there for the folks. Thanks again. Have a good one.